Jerry Wayne Irons, defensive back, Navy football class of 2005 from small town Valley Springs, California. 2-year JUCO guy, Navy nuke for a couple years. Post-Naval Academy pipeline, flies jets, F-18s, has Top Gun experience. Settling down today, flying for Delta, focused on family, being the best dad and guitarist he could be. Let's go. Okay, today we got Wayne Irons. He goes by Wayno, or known by Wayno. DB 2005. Did some flying. Graduated and got into jets. Did the Pensacola thing from Valley Springs, California, east side of San Francisco. About right?
Yep, that's right.
And took you from Calaveras High School. It's a Naval Academy, graduated in 2005. You did some grad assistant time with Coach Johnson, so that was probably fun. Yeah. Along with Aaron Polanco, Josh Smith. I guess that would have been the year that I was at NEPS. No.
Yep.
Maybe 2005. Yep. Yes, because Bob McLaren was, same class.
Yeah.
And then you went to Top Gun. That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that.
All right.
Anyways, that's the intro. Let's hit the memories. I got memories from 4 folks. First one was episode 29 guest Josh Smith, one of your best friends there at Navy. He said everyone will say Wayne was quite the ladies' man in college. He was 4 years older than the rest of us. He went to 2 years of JUCO, played football, enlisted in the Navy as a nuclear guy. So did some time under the surface.
Yeah.
And then I got picked up to the academy, went to NAPS. He said something about an Alpha Omega party. What was that?
Yeah, man. Every time I'm driving on the highway and I see those trucks drive by with the oversized load banner on the back, I think about that party, because we got like you've done it, where everybody's so talented around you physically, but we had some guys that were talented musically as well. So they got this band together. Tyson Stahl and Corbin Dryden, Matt McLaughlin, and then Matt Esposito. And we were able to book this illustrious group for a party at our sponsor's house. And I just know that grass will never be the same. We just had almost the entire football game. It seemed like the entire school in the backyard of our sponsor dad's house. Nice. And that was epic.
And sponsor dad's name was Mark. I guess he had some chants and cheers that y'all still use to this day.
Oh, yeah. I still sing "The Goat is Old and Gnarly," which apparently everybody knows that song, but I still sing that to my kids. I put my 2-year-old to bed singing that song. But nice. He got us into kind of the rugby chants. I started to sing that to my wife because I was trying to get her to finish a beer the other night, and and my kids were around. I realized, this song's probably not a good one yet. Teach the kids.
Oh man, what about a yearly case race? What's that?
Oh man, Megan, I'm surprised these guys bring that up with the utter domination that we put on these guys. But we would grab, I want to say it was a 30 rack. It might've been 24, somewhere in there. And you and a partner would just drink it as fast as you can. I mean, standard glorifying alcohol abuse, but we were pretty damn good at it. And I was average, to be honest. I could hold my own, but I was not a superstar in this race. But my partner, Megan, absolute monster. We beat everybody. It's still a little contentious to the day, because they a beer can here or there, they claim we may have not finished them all. It's not true. We obviously did, but Megan was just such a dominant force that it wasn't even a race.
Nice. How about a Foxfield horse race at UVA Hotel?
Oh man. I mean, I don't know how PC this podcast is,
It's not.
but oh my
And we
gosh.
can always
So
cut stuff out just in case.
yeah, I don't think it's that bad, but we we loved these horse races. We started doing it at the Preakness. We almost got into a fight with the whole Delaware football team, Delaware v. Navy. Can you
Yes.
imagine? Can you imagine that press conference or that news article?
Yeah.
But luckily, that didn't turn into the rumble that it could have. But we
Was that the
loved it.
year that superstar quarterback Flacco came out of there?
I can't remember.
A couple years before.
Yeah, I can't remember if that was our sophomore and junior. I can't remember, but I know there was bad blood. I know we played them. They're tough,
Yeah.
and none of us like losing. So it was we got into these horse races mostly for the infield antics, and we went down to Foxfield, and there was anybody will share you their booze, anybody will share bags of wine, and we what did we make back then? I think it was $25 a month as a freshman, 50 as a sophomore, 75. And then I think we got a big pay raise, like 125 as a senior. So there was probably 8 of us football players in one hotel room at the end of this thing. Everybody's a mess. So I'm on the edge of the bed with my back to the wall. And I remember hearing more than feeling the sound of urine spattering against something. And I was like, what on earth is that sound? And as the more I wake up, the feeling comes in. I realize that somebody is pissing on my back. And I turn around and Corey Dryden,
Oh, Dryden.
Corey Dryden, junk in his hand, just pissing away. And I jump up, and Josh and Lane Jackson, I mean, they're out of the bed before I am even awake because they know what's about to happen because my face is beet red. I'm upset. And so they've like got me wrangled. And I'm like, you are pissing on my back. He's still got his dick in his hand, and he's looking at me, and he's like, no, I'm not. I didn't do it. No, I'm not. Oh,
We had a
yeah.
Dryden in our class too. Old Jimmy D came out sometimes, and wouldn't surprise me him doing the same thing. So
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been humbled by these guys in so many ways, but that may have been top of the list.
yeah, for sure. Last couple out of Josh, we'll keep moving. Is Wayne and I clicked at Pleep Summer at the academy. We were in the same company, played safety, both cut from the same cloth. Wayne pushed me every day, either on the field, in the weight room. I give him a lot of credit for making me the best player that I could be. Worst part was Wayne only had 2 years of eligibility left when he came to Navy. Because you played those 2 years at JUCO, right?
Yeah.
So he couldn't play our senior year, so he coached.
Yeah.
Today, he's one of the best dads that I know, and still a best friend. We live within a mile of each other here in Virginia Beach, and our kids call us uncle. So
Yeah.
there's a good theme of the dad thing, like one of the best dads. I think everyone touched on that at some point. So that's
Yeah.
good.
It's incredible to hear kind words from someone you look up to, so, like I do Josh, and he says that on the field, and obviously he pushed me there, but being a good dad thing, it's a big goal of mine, and he does that for me every day too. So
Awesome.
I appreciate those words from him.
Cool.
Living so close is dangerous, by the way.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I'm not real close to a lot of guys, from on the map standpoint. But if I did have someone close, it would probably be somewhat dangerous, I believe.
Yeah.
Next one is Adam Horn, episode 37 guy. He said Wayne was always a guy we look up to, even at naps. It was easy to tell that he was the hardest worker. He would never take no for an answer. He was a guy you went to for advice, and you knew he would do anything to help you. He rented an RV and drove us to the Ohio State Navy lacrosse game our senior year. I think that one came up in an earlier episode. The AD from Ohio State called Chet Gladchuck during the game because we were too loud. Yeah, and it was one of those days. Had a few. Here's his last bullet point was he was also always the dad too. He was a little older. he kept us out of trouble, and he stopped us from doing dumb stuff more times than I can count. So
Adam Horn, he's the man. I've been lucky enough to go and watch his career professionally, and I've been to his change of commands where
awesome.
I think all of his Marines were saying the same exact thing. Just an absolute leader and a stud. Yeah, that game, it was cool. We had a nice relationship with the lacrosse team. They supported us. They were just as rowdy, so we thought we'd return the favor and travel and we thought we traveled well. Apparently, the AD didn't believe we traveled quite as well as we did.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Adam Horn, yeah. So his younger brother Alex was like a year above me, same company. So he was kind of that guy looking out. He was a sophomore, I was a freshman. So, and then when I got on with Adam, I could tell like what you were talking about. His change of command and following his career is just a good dude. So
yeah, he's incredible.
Awesome. All right, next one is Lane Jackson, episode 77 guest. He said, Wayne is an extremely tough kid. I remember Naps, they had a Friday night fight club where two dudes would just square off in a room for fun. Wayne was probably $170 soaking wet, but nobody wanted to go up against him, myself included. If there was a fight, you wanted Jerry Wayne Irons on your side. Exceptionally scrappy and tenacious.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was coming from a guy like Lane. I heard his podcast with you. I guess you can understand what an incredible compliment that is coming from him to call somebody tough or tenacious. So I appreciate that. That's awesome.
He said, I remember one brawl in Virginia Beach. Some unfortunate kid from the other group picked Wayne, the smallest out of all of us, to push first, and all hell broke loose. We beat the hell out of those kids until the cops showed up and chased Wayne and I for like 3 miles down the beach before we lost him by hiding in a hotel.
Yeah. Like you, it's a pretty lethal combination. You get a bunch of us together that beat each other up. We're constantly training, probably in the best shape of our lives, and we love each other like family. And somebody tries to step in on that, and that's a pretty dangerous recipe there.
No doubt. Anytime you get a big group of that type of guys together, and there's a lot of potential for sure. Let's see. He was truly a team first kind of guy. Wayne played a year of ball before going to Naps, so he had one less year of eligibility than the rest of us. But even with no eligibility, he never left the team. He stayed on, helped coaches, kind of like grad assist, TAD, always doing the most he could to help his brothers win, even if he wasn't on the field. I haven't spoken to him in 10 years, but I love that guy just as much as ever. So.
Yeah, like when the eligibility thing came up, I had an opportunity. The coaching staff there is incredible. You know about them. You were part of it, but they offered me the opportunity to stay with the team, travel with them, and just help any way I can. And when you get an opportunity to be around great people like that, you don't pass it up.
Yeah, they didn't have you trying to figure out the other team's signals, did they? I just finished that documentary on Netflix. That was nuts.
That is nuts. No, my skills were not needed for that.
Gotcha. All right, last one, Aaron Wayno. So this was your Naps roommate.
Yes, sir.
He said, we didn't really get along when we got to Newport. He was into rock and roll. I was into hip hop. I dipped tobacco. He hated it. He was on defense. I was a receiver. We really didn't have a lot in common, but ended the year best friends.
Yeah.
Wayne learned how to play the guitar we were at Naps. So did I.
That poor dude. He had to hear all of that.
Yep. There's not a whole lot to do, right? So might as well pick up a guitar and play a little bit.
That's right.
He said, I had to listen to the start of Jack and Diane more times than any human should ever have to endure. But today, the man can play a mean guitar.
Yeah. Man, Aaron Wayno, God, I love that guy. He came in, and you remember at that age, all you've been told is you were the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, you're the
Yep.
best. You've been recruited everywhere, and here you go. You show up,
Big
and
fish in a small pond. Yep.
yeah, and I had been lucky to be humbled a little bit more, um, 4 years prior, and so here I am. I feel like I'm just lucky to be there. I'm happy to do whatever. I had already made my Lane Jackson decision that I was going to drown before I stopped swimming, and fail, like whatever it took. And he
Yep.
wasn't there. He was like, "You're welcome for the opportunity to room with me. You're welcome for the opportunity to be on my football team." And so it was so fun, because I could tell right away what kind of man was underneath all that, and to watch to watch him change from you're welcome to I'll swim, no matter what,
Yeah.
and I'll drown before I fail. That was cool.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. I love that kind of shit. So um he said Wayne was and still is like a big brother to me. He was prior enlisted and he already been through 2 years of college upon entering NEPS. We used to call him Grandpa. So another
Hmm.
dad thing, kind of one step up. It was endearing. It was an endearing backhand compliment. LOL. Wayne has always had such a grounded perspective on life. He is not rattled easily, and that has always been something I highly respected. His mindset in Annapolis was simple: pay now, play later. It was a way of getting through all the BS, knowing that the dust would settle and things would get better. You know, and one of my missions on this whole podcast is just that. It's like share it that stuff because as the BS happens, the dust will settle, things will get better, and that delayed gratification was what it's all about. So
Yeah. Same thing with Josh. Getting any compliments from a guy as awesome as Aaron Weedo, that's humbling.
awesome. So that wraps up the memory stuff, and this is where I say tell us the Wayno story. Go back as far as you want to. That's
Yeah,
the good stuff.
I think um, I think some of this will come into the hard work stuff, but I grew up in that town, Valley Springs. You're talking about. It was a small town in the foothills. To say it's east of San Francisco is a little misleading, and if you think it's anything like San Francisco, it's just a sleepy little town. It's getting a little bigger as time goes on, but that small fish or a big fish I was like a small fish in a small pond. Um, but I had just the best support. My parents were amazing. I don't have like the hardship story that sometimes are more exciting. They were just great. They gave me every opportunity, even if we didn't have the money for things. They found the money to make sure I was able to play every sport growing up. They made every practice. They made every game. It was cool. So, but the challenges I had is that I was 5'9", and that was not until I had a big growth spurt in my sophomore year of high school. Um, so I was always the smallest kid. I wasn't very fast. I wasn't very good, but I knew that I wanted to be good and I wanted to play at a high level, and I wanted the glory that comes with that. So I was willing to put in the time. And my mom, I remember every single day of high school, I'd get home, whatever homework I had to do, and we'd go straight to the garage and I'd hit the gym. And my poor mom can tell you every Pantera White Zombie song there is out. She'd tell you the lyrics because she spotted me. Yeah, she was out there. She was like, "Fine, I'll do it." Um, and so I had to work a lot harder than a lot of these guys that were naturally gifted. And I think that kind of carried on. Because I had to work really hard. And then you go through this cycle many times. You've done it in sports, in the military, where you show up at a place, you're not very good, and you're the new guy, you don't know anything, so you just put your head down and you work really hard. Eventually, you're a senior in high school and you're a big deal. People know your name, they're talking about you on the radio, you're in the newspaper, whatever. Then you go to somewhere like the NAPS or the academy, and you're like, oh my God, everybody is really big, really fast.
Yep.
And then you get professional. You go to, in the Marine Corps or the Navy, you're the new guy again. You don't know anything by the end of that.
Yeah.
So I got that opportunity, go to junior college in Modesto, California, played there for a couple of years. But back then I didn't really believe in myself because my dad was like, "Hey man, you should go play somewhere." I'm like, if I'm gonna be a professional anything, I'm gonna be fixing cars or something. I'm not gonna be being a professional athlete. And he's like, "No, I think you should really try." So he kind of talked me into playing at the junior college. So I by the second year of that, there were some schools calling, but not really household names that you're hearing about every day. So I thought, I go to junior college, and then I was like, God, it's embarrassing. I know that my friends are going to hear this, so I hate to admit it, but I saw the Top Gun movie, and I was like, man, that'd be cool. So I got this opportunity. This dude who used to beat me up in wrestling, Kevin McNatt, small world, he was just getting into jets in Navy, and he's like, hey, you should go to Navy. Well, just like anything else, I wasn't very big. I wasn't great in school. So I applied to the Naval Academy, and they're like, hey, why don't you think about NAPS? And so I was like, sure, that sounds great. In the meantime, I enlisted in the Navy, went to Nuke Power School. Well, then I got accepted into NAPS while I was at Power School. So I went there, and my dad again convinced me. He said, hey, you're at NAPS here. Why don't you try out for the football team? And I said, I don't know, man. These guys are really good. But I gave it a shot. And you can imagine, you've met some of these guys, the Adam Horns, the Kyle Eccles, the Lane Jackson, all these TJ Costello. Like I had no business being on the field with them, but I tried out. And that very first day, I got cut. I didn't make it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in this cubicle next to Aaron Wayno, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrible. This is awful. I'm in a low place. And all of a sudden I get a knock on my door, and I thought I was going to get yelled at for something else. And to tell me that I was even bigger failure. And Jamie Doffmeyer comes in, an amazing safety for Navy. And he was the coach up there at the time. And he's like, he's an energetic guy, just amazing. And he said, hey, this is bullshit. You know why you were cut? And I could have given him 100 reasons. I was pretty down on myself. And he said, because we didn't have enough helmets. He's like, I will get you a fucking helmet. He said, you come out tomorrow. Whether you have a helmet, I'll go buy you one.
Awesome.
So
was Jamie, was he head coach there? Was he like graduate?
He was a graduate assistant.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like getting those types of names thrown out, especially in stories like this, because those are the next type of people that I try and ask to get on here. So
he would be great on the show. Yeah. It's just so he got me out there, and for NAPS, the rest is history. I ended up playing up there and having just the best time playing with those other super studs. So then we go freshman year, and I think you've heard enough stories about our Ophir years there. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, we had just lost, like, I can't remember if it was a Georgia Tech. I think it was the first game. And I was just so happy to be there. And we had lost 70 to something. It was bad. And I remember, like, here we go. We're going to run. We're going to die today.
Who was the head coach at the time?
It was Weatherby.
Okay.
And Coach Weatherby said, hey, it was a great day. You guys tried hard. You fought hard. And I remember thinking in my brain right then, we'll lose every single game this year. We're going to lose every single game this year.
Yeah.
And sure enough, one of the few times in my life my prediction came true. So then sophomore year, I ended up medical redshirting that year. I had to have some work done on my shoulder, which was fortuitous because I only had 2 years of eligibility anyways.
What happened to it?
Just a labrum.
Okay.
Yeah. So then sophomore year rolls around, and that whole Paul Johnson regime comes in, and we went from being where we went to football to take a break from the hardships of the Naval Academy to the Naval Academy was a break from football. And I remember thinking at that time, the exact opposite. I said, I think we might do something. I think this group of guys, I think this group of coaches, I think we can do something. And again, that ended up thankfully working out, because having done that before, being the smallest all the time, always having to work. We had some great athletes on those teams, but even our greatest athletes weren't getting calls from Alabama. So we had to work really hard, and we started doing it, and it was great. Then I got to, be a part of that, the turnaround there, and I know you talked a lot about that, so I won't anchor down there. But then the GA part was awesome, being a part of those guys.
Well, real quick on the turnaround, I
Yeah.
talked a lot about it, but I also want to try and pick like one of your favorite memories out of it too. Like I think you just hit one was where you said, I think we can do something, like,
Yeah.
all right, now we're getting there. Was there anything
Yeah.
else that, pops out to you from that whole experience? Like maybe the time it happened, an event that made you think that, other than just the sheer work that you had to put into it?
Yeah. I just remember guys like Lane and Josh. I don't want to drop too many names because I'm going to feel bad when I listen back and I've forgotten all the names. But I just remember I'd be dog tired from the coaches beating us up, and then we'd finish a workout, and then these dudes would go back out on the field for some more work. And I remember thinking, like, God, I'm exhausted, but the culture that these guys were creating, I wasn't going to not do it. I wasn't going to miss out on any of that stuff. So just like Lane, when he's in the pool, like I was on that train and I wasn't going to fail. And if it took going out there with those guys and being a part of that culture, then I was going to do it. And then, before long, it was just a way of life. And that was the work that it took to succeed. And I just remember those days, out there and the extra stuff. Getting out there yeah.
I'm just, I think a lot of people are, maybe, I don't know, but I'm extremely fascinated with turnaround stories. I like watching the turnaround stories. I like watching the, small dog beat the big one and all that.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked.
Yeah. I think as a team, kind of what happened to the Aaron, and Aaron Wayno, just the super stud, watching life and games and watching naps in 1 year kind of humble him and get him towards the man that he was. Just watching that happen to a whole team kind of happened. Like these coaches came in and said, hey, I know you guys think you're awesome. I know you think you're really great, but you're not. So you can get there by working really hard. So watching the switch go off in everybody's brain, we're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not the greatest athlete. I can't just show up. I can't just walk into a room and this other team's going to hand me the victory. I got to actually earn it. Watching everybody's mentality switch was really cool. And it was a process for sure.
Gotcha. Good stuff. All right. So on to GA time, I guess.
Yeah. So GA time. I'll throw a funny story in there for you if you got time for it.
We got time.
My favorite memory, also humbling moment for me, is I had met my now wife at the time. We went up to Indiana. They have this thing called Little 500. It's a huge party. And so we had met there, and there were times where you can only look at, I was a recruiting guy, so you could only look at so many recruiting tapes and file them and send them around to guys. So I was busy working on being my ladies' man and schmoozing my wife. So I got a hold of some Navy football letterhead, and as I was sending out letters to recruits, I would also send out some schmoopy letters to my wife, girlfriend at the time. And you probably haven't got a ton of Coach Colton stories, but
yeah, just go ahead, go for it.
Yeah. So I'm sending out these letters, and I think that I'm smooth as butter. And Coach Colton, somehow he sees this letter, and he just happened to look at the address, and he's like, I don't remember this recruit. And I don't think I was even that discreet. I don't think it was even like a huge invasion of privacy, because I probably wrote most of the letter on the back of a postcard. And he got a hold of this thing, laminated it, and just made copies, laminated them, and distributed them to the entire coaching staff.
Nice.
So Aaron and Josh and I, we used to run in from our apartment, and we show up one morning, and oh my God, I got so many laughs. That was a real humiliating story there. My wife to this day still dies laughing.
Nice. You got it framed in your hallway or basement or something?
Oh yeah. Thanks, Coach Colton.
Nice. Well, it's already laminated, so that's
yeah, right. So that was just a great experience. That whole thing is a great group of people to be around. I learned so much. And then I just think that football, the GA process, everything set me up for success more than anything else that I've done in my life for flight school. Because being a defender, you know that, and you probably didn't have to deal with, but I certainly did. I've heard you say no wasted steps. Good Lord, I needed no wasted steps. I didn't have any wasted steps to give. So you had to prepare and prepare. You had to know everything so well that you could see it and react immediately. And under high stress situations, whether you're nervous, confused, hot, tired. So I kind of took that approach into flight school, and man, it served me so well, because flight school is kind of the same thing. You're under G, you're tired, you're confused, you're disoriented, whatever, and you just have to know everything so well. You don't have time to look back at notes, and you just have to react. And I've thought that many times. So Pensacola Flight School, I got to do that with a bunch of great people, the Polancas, the Horns, the Josh Smith, and Chris Spiker.
Y'all do at flight school, and as you're training and all that, I watched the Blue Angels documentary as well. John Fay on there, another episode.
Yeah.
When they're doing mental rehearsals in the room, and they're, making calls, and everybody's doing their moves, visualizing.
Yeah.
Y'all do stuff like that there too? Or is that just like a Blue Angels and maybe even a Top Gun thing? I don't know.
No, those guys definitely formalize we call it chair flying. They formalize it and do it to a much higher degree than most guys. But I think anybody, to be successful, you got to be thinking ahead, and you have to thought. This can't be the first time you're thinking about it when you're in the airplane. So for sure we do that. But that's where I think, watching film and essentially chair flying before a game really helped out a lot. Also,
making your play call cheat sheets like that documentary.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about that. I watched it a couple days ago, and man, that guy was committed.
Yeah, man. So then after flight school, I got jets. So I went out to California and Lemoore. Have you been there?
No.
That's a real peach. It's a nice place.
Where is it?
It's south of Fresno, about 45 minutes. It's essentially in the heart of agricultural Central Valley. And there's some cool things about it for sure, but it on the exterior is disgusting. So I went there, learned how to fly the F-18, and then got sent to Japan. Kind of kicking and screaming, but my wife really wanted to go out there, and it ended up being an incredible tour. We did a bunch of stuff out near China and in Japan.
I never got that rotation. There's a lot of my buddies that have. What was the coolest part about being out there?
I think the coolest part of being out there is just a completely different culture. I mean, it is so different that you see a 5-year-old on a train without his parents, because they just do the right thing no matter what. Awesome. Their sense of honor, and just seeing a culture like that was really cool. plus we kind of only had each other, kind of like the football team. You know, you go through things together. I've heard you say the FIBU thing, but you kind of had that as an air wing. It was just you guys, and so you cruise together. We were out on the ship a lot, but when we came home, we did everything together, and it's so
It's
easy
tight.
to travel.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was cool. And then I was lucky enough to get picked up for Top Gun. So I came back and did that. And talk about humbling experience, being around talented people. Felt like I was back day one at the Naval Academy, being around all those super studs.
Yeah.
Um,
So
really,
how does Top Gun go for you? Like from when you show up, kind of make a visualization for us on how that
yeah.
experience was.
So you show up and the first thing you do is not to insult anyone's intelligence, but for the non-aviators, you essentially start in dogfighting phase to weed out the weaklings, and you have to have prepared a lot. You give basically a talk about what you're going to do. You go do it, and then you talk about how poorly you did it before every flight. And you start out there, and if you haven't prepared and showed them that you want to be there, you're gone immediately. But you
Nice.
essentially go on deck, you take a bunch of airplanes and all your guys, your class, and then you just get the hell beat out of you for essentially the whole first Top Gun movie where they just are fighting all these super studs. That is just the first phase of it, and you just get humbled. I remember thinking early on, like, man, I I really, because I talked about the phases where you go to high school, you're a stud, you go to, and then you're nothing in college. Then at the end of college, you feel pretty cool, and then you go to flight school and realize that there's a lot of people smarter than you. You're not very good at flying airplanes. By the end of that tour, before going to Top Gun, I mean, I had almost believed that I was a pretty cool dude and knew what I was doing. And Top Gun just completely demolished me. And I remember thinking early in that phase, like, well, how am I going to tell my parents that I got kicked out? And tell my friends? It's just going to be embarrassing. And then I had the Lane Jackson moment, swimming with my flippers, and I was like, man, I'm not. I'd rather drown. Like I just imagine, like a UFC getting somebody trying to tap me out. Like, nope, you need to choke me out here. So I just remember being in Buddy's room. You see those guys flying models and stuff. Uh, Tyler Moore, Pickles. I was in his room and just flying models till who knows how late, trying to figure this stuff out. Put your head down, and then uh, you get through that phase if you're lucky enough, and then you go to like section phase where you're using you have another wingman, and it's changed a bunch right now, but you have another wingman and you try to learn how to fight all the phases that drop some bombs, you try to fight your way into places and drop bombs, and then you try to defend ships and all that stuff, and then
Yeah.
you eventually get to 4 airplanes where you're flying with 3 of your other buddies, and when you get through that phase, all this stuff takes a while. There's plenty of flights to show how bad you are, and then they eventually beat enough sense into you, and then you graduate, and then you take what you learned at Top Gun, and you usually go back to a squadron you go to a shore command where you teach guys what you know, what Top Gun taught you, and then you go to a sea command and kind of do the same thing.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah, I remember
Uh,
they were for my class. They had brought out a movie team because they were talking about making Top Gun 2 way back then, like 2016.
yeah.
And we're all beat down, just studying. We're miserable. We got coffee, rings under our eyes, and they're like, "Yeah, so where's the volleyball? When does that happen?" Yeah, they're having to work pretty hard to make a movie exciting. That's probably why they shifted entirely away from the class. And they were like, we got to
Gotcha.
do something else. You guys are boring.
Any key learnings out of that? Obviously, there's probably a lot, but was there one that stuck out to you? Like, as in, I learned this from this experience, and I still carry it.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I think I learned that I had to find, number one, you have to believe that you can do it, and then the goal has to be important enough to you that you'll do what it takes to get it done. Um, that because there's a lot of misery in there. There's a you got a lot of discomfort, and so I just had to find you had to believe that that's something you want to, and I wanted to be, we call it a patch wearer. I wanted to be a TOPGUN graduate so badly that I was willing to do whatever it takes, and that's really what I took from that.
Cool. So what happens after that?
Yeah, so then I go through those tours. Probably one of my favorite tours, like my first experience, like really mentoring, where you get to see. I got to teach at the initial training for F-18, and that was cool. You got to meet a ton of really cool people and teach guys what's new and great. But then when you go to your C command, you get the same group of guys and you get to work with them every day for, I think my tour is only 2 years. I got cut a little bit short, but and you get to see them grow from brand new, barely flying airplane to just absolute lethal killers. And that was my favorite tour for sure. And then from there, I got out.
What made you get out?
For me, it was really family.
Okay.
My number one goal in life right now is to be a great dad and a great husband. And it was getting to the point where I felt like I had put in a ton of effort serving my country, and I was proud of the body of work that I had. But to be able to meet my goal of being a great dad and a family man, it was time to put my professional ambitions aside and get into something else. And it ended up being the greatest thing, because I get to do I'm still flying F-18s with some of the most talented people that I know. And we do the adversary mission, get to play bad guy for the guys that are still out there getting ready for combat. And then I get to fly for Delta, which affords me a pretty comfortable life and the funding and the time off to do what I want to do with the family.
Gotcha. I'm kind of doing that right now. I'm, making the dad thing a priority, whereas the professional ambitions used to be very important.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's encouraging to hear, and it's fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool. Anything else before I ask you a few questions? I don't have a whole lot, but I want to hit a few.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. You hit Coach Colton, but is there any other cool coach stories? That's a common one I try to hit with the old breed guys.
Yeah. I remember Coach Speed. He's such a motivational guy. Yeah. He had me about ready to jump out of my skin with excitement. I mean, he's such a badass. He was getting us fired up before a game, and he put this image in my mind about a Doberman pincer pinning his ears back and getting ready to come out of it. He said he was going to let us off the leash. And I mean, I probably ran my best 40 time, which is not saying much, just coming out of the tunnel, getting ready to get on that field after Coach Speed gave us that speech. I heard a lot of your other ones that the coaches were saying. That was always good. I remember, have you had the one on there? I won't say his name because he's the enemy now. He's a coach at Army.
Oh yeah, Monken.
But yeah, we work so hard. Everybody's talked about the turnaround, how everybody works hard, and that happens on an individual level too. You work in the off season, you try to get bigger, faster, stronger, and you come out there, and usually guys, you can see the success. And I just remember this player running down the field. He'd really come a long way. Everybody's talking about what great strides he had taken. And Coach Monken, oh man, I said his name. He goes running out there on the field. I really love him. But he goes running out the field. He goes, "You're the same motherfucker. You're not fooling anybody. I don't want to talk about your improvement." And he's just ripping on this guy. And I'm like, oh my God, it hurts me just to watch it happen.
Yeah,
But there was a method to their madness, because it certainly kept the
sure.
fire under this guy. And
As soon as he
you,
took that Army job, I knew, oh man, about to get better.
yep,
Um, and it
yeah,
did
yeah, yeah. You're never gonna rest on your laurels with those guys.
for
And
sure. Good. Yeah, it was a encouraging game yesterday. Navy 2 in a row, looking
yeah,
strong. I was
yeah.
able to meet and talk with the defensive coordinator. Went to Bob McLaren's one of his clinics and
Oh,
met him.
cool.
Met Volker there and got a good feel. And I was like, man, this is a good dude, and they got
Yeah,
a shot. And it's encouraging to see those past couple games for sure.
yeah, definitely.
Do you have a favorite or best mentor combo of a
Oh,
couple?
that's tough, because man, I just feel like my entire life I've been happy to be there. I've been one of those guys. And so I hear you talk about a couple guys in those memories looking up to me, and every one of them, I look up to them. Um, I I guess one of my most recent, it's kind of a peer mentor, but this guy, Matt Diedrich Flo, in the airplane, in the fighter world, you it's always competitive, just like in sports. And we do these dogfighting events all the time. Anytime you have an extra couple thousand pounds of gas, you pick a fight with anybody you can. You try to fight them. And I remember there's a point in my career, and I'd always looked up and I thought he had just the best attitude. But there's this point in my career where I stopped losing as many fights, and I got to this point where I found myself almost ducking fights, because I had what deep down I hadn't thought about at the time, but a pretty decent record going for myself.
Playing
And
to not lose versus playing to win, typically.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I remember Matt telling me, he was like, dude, I love to lose. That's when I learn stuff. That you and his infectious attitude crept back into me, and I was like, when, at what point did I lose that? Because to everything up to that point, to get to where I was, that was my mentality. And for to have a friend get me back to there was awesome. And to watch the light bulb go on, and I was like, from that point forward, I went back into growth mode instead of just kind of
Yes.
stasis. And it was incredible. So yeah, Matt Diedrich, he's kind of my near term mentor.
Awesome. That's a great story. Dog fighting. You ever have a scare in the air? Like, ooh, that was
Yeah,
a close one.
yeah. Um, Couple of them, the same mission. So we kind of practice this mission where there's a Marine on the ground, or maybe a downed aviator or somebody, that we need to establish air superiority over that point. And you're out there with a friend, and you just get jumped left and right by airplanes from all over. Kind of low situational awareness, and they just hit you out of nowhere. We call it 2v1, or like section engaged maneuvering. So I've had a couple scares there, but in that mission, I was at any point in my life when I've had enough of these, where if I start to feel a little bit cocky, I immediately, the hair on the back of my neck stands up, like, oh,
Don't
you
do
better
it.
get together, because here it comes. So I remember I found this guy down low, and I thought, ooh, baby, you're about to get the business. So so I go down to get him, and when the G starts coming on, usually we do a pretty good job tightening the legs. You heard this stuff from the documentary. You get ahead of that stuff. I was too excited to go get this guy, and I'd been doing it a lot where I wasn't too worried about it. Well, I was probably 7,000 feet above the ground. I'm bullseye nose low, and I'm starting to lose my vision. It's
Uh-oh.
going down, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm probably 500 knots. My throttles are already at idle, and there wasn't much I could do except keep pulling to get out of this, because I'm pointing at the ground. And
Yikes.
that was the last memory I have. And so as I pull through, I just remember hearing the sounds of the cockpit coming back, and then I look up, and my nose is kind of pointed at my friends. So my wingman is merging with the guy way up above me, and I hear their voices, and I hear left to left, and I go, and I'm starting to be able to make things, process things again. And I see them go by, and I go, oh, well, that must be the bad guy. So I shoot him, and I call flows, and, training, everything is so ingrained to you. I'm able to, on stem power, get this thing going where it needs to go again.
Yeah. Even though your mind may not be 100%, you got that autopilot of repetition
Yeah.
kicking in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say the things that we say, and when I'm not saying it over the radio, nobody can hear me. And I'm going screaming like, oh my God, what the hell was that? And then I go back to talking normal on the radio, and we land. And I just remember we do the debrief. We don't really talk about it. And I go back home, and Carrie finds me in my hot tub, just wasted. And she's like, what are you doing?
Rough day.
That was a rough day, man. Yeah, I almost burned one in. That would have been bad. So yeah, that was a tough one. Same mission. I got really focused on trying to kill the bad guy that I stopped looking at my other good guy, and he was doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we just were both trying to kill him. And here we go. The next time I look up at him, I take a glance at him. His airplane was way too big, and the only thing that I could do, I just remember kind of hunching over in the cockpit to make myself small, like instinctively, which does absolutely nothing. And you get this big thump, because we went through it right. I mean, we were feet away from hitting each other. And that was that same guy, Pickles Moore, teaching me everything about dogfighting and Top Gun. And we got on the ground, and we looked at each other. We're like, you want to talk about that? And we're like, yeah, let's not talk about that one. But like it's so many mistakes and things like that you grow from, and it brings you to where you are now.
Awesome, man. I kind of wanted to fly. I took the test, failed it to get into the pilot realm, but I don't think I could have done it. Like some of the stuff I hear from the guys that fly, like I get way too nauseous on stupid stuff. Flying would be a rough one. Is it? Those are a couple scares. Are there any other like pucker factor type of things for you as a pilot, where I really don't like doing this one thing as a pilot? What would that be?
Yeah, probably. Just there's always a challenge landing on the aircraft carrier at night.
Yeah, you're the second one to say that.
Yeah, they've come a long way. There's a ton of technology to make it better, but there's always wind and weather, and I mean, sometimes the ship's got to drive into the wind, and guess where the wind comes from? It's thunderstorms. So I mean, you're driving into that stuff. But yeah, the landing on the back of the ship can be an equalizer, especially at night.
Gotcha. Well, cool. Only a couple more. How about today? Like to touch on the failures you learn the most. What's your biggest struggle that you're working through today?
Gosh, a little vanilla, but probably the biggest struggle is just balance. So you talked about, you're getting back to being focusing on being a good dad.
Yeah.
Just try to be a good dad, but also remember that my wife's a human, and be a good husband. And she's such a badass mom that I forget, that she needs some love too. And then, I still want to be good at work, and how to balance all that stuff out, and make enough money to be comfortable and happy and provide a good life for your kids, but not so much that you're taking away time from them. And and I think a lot of us that have had a little bit of success, I mostly think about, I'm my own worst critic. I mostly think about my failures. I'll lay awake in bed, and I'll still think about mistakes that I made in high school wrestling or high school football. And so imagine near in, I'll have an interaction with my kids that I'm not proud of, and like, golly. So that's probably the biggest struggle, but because ultimately, I think the theme of what I've been trying to say is my goal is to be a great dad, and the second I stop trying to get better and admit that I'm not perfect, is the second I'm not going to be a good dad. So I just that's my struggle. It's just trying to take all those things that I don't do very well and fix them.
Gotcha. Has there been a key unlock for that for you? Like, all right, this is working. I'm asking for me.
Yeah, man. You know how they get to be, you'll hear yourself come out of their mouth
Yes.
when they'll parrot something that you say.
Yeah.
And there's been just as many bads where I'm like, oops, that was me. Yep.
Don't do
Sorry
that.
about that. Yeah, don't do that. That was bad. That was dad. But there's been a couple goods, when you start to hear some things that you're proud of come out of their mouths, and you've had just a small part of that. Yeah, that's been the unlock for me.
Cool. All right. Last one.
Yeah.
The closer, what's your price of admission?
Yeah. It's such a great question, because I think we don't typically, we're so focused on so many other things, we don't typically get to look inside very often. So as you were so kind to ask me on this thing, I feel honored to be here. I started thinking about this question, and I think the simplest answer is usually the closest to the correct one for me. And my price has been my pride, because at any point that I was comfortable, I thought about stopping. I could have stopped in high school, where I felt like I was a pretty big deal. The only thing I had to do to get better was to sacrifice my pride and go get beat up by all these superstars that you've had on your show. And I was always willing to do it, which has gotten me all those really cool experiences. You'll see it in weight rooms, just leave your pride at the door. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Same thing with every goal I've had in life is, like you talk about the dogfighting thing, if you want to get better, you leave your pride in the door, and you go fight the best, and you get beat up, and then you learn from it. And with parenting, like, man, I know that I don't have the right answers, and I learn half as much from my kids as I do from me trying to teach them. So I just try to bring humility into everything, and sacrifice my pride, which my wife would probably tell you I have plenty of it to sacrifice. But,
don't we all? It's that hair on the back of your neck sticking up, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Good stuff. What's your wife's name?
Carrie.
Carrie. Tell Carrie
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for her time
Man, I
today,
will.
and all of
I
her.
will.
You mentioned a lot about her, and obviously with the family and what you're trying to be the best dad. Obviously, she probably does most of it, and those kids.
Yeah. Well,
Cool,
awesome, man.
man.
I'm honored that you'd asked me to be on here, and I appreciate it.
Yes, awesome time. I appreciate the perspective, and take care.
I think my favorite thing about you so far is that you still use your alpha code in your email, and I do too. You're the only dude
Yep.
I know that still does that like me. So
That's my go-to. I do have
yeah,
one. I have two others, but that's my
yeah.
go-to for most. So
Mad respect.
awesome.
Awesome.
All
Thanks,
right.
man.